Right, so in the last lesson we learned something pretty cool, which is just how to use a formula to update the conditional formatting of one particular cell. It becomes more complicated, however, if you want to apply conditional formatting to an entire range and use a formula. So that's what we're going to go through here. Now, first of all, let's just say, okay, this is looking a little bit ugly. Let's say I don't really want it to look like that, and I'm just going to remove the conditional formatting. So you go to conditional formatting, clear rules, and clear rules from selected cells. What I want instead is for this column to highlight in italics and in red for any costs that are over 50 that appear in the cost column. So you're going to be dealing with two columns. So to start with, to keep it simple, let's just start with just one row. So you select this bit, the tree fell on my roof, and you go, as usual, to create a new rule and to use a formula to determine which cells to format. Now, it's quite simple here, just to one cell. You're going to say, well, if B17 is greater than 50, then I want you to format, well, first of all, my font is going to be italic, and my it's going to be italic, and it's going to be colored red. And you click on OK, and then you click on OK again. That's worked. Now, kind of a cool thing that you can do is you can say, all right, well, what if I copy that and now paste it, but not normal paste. You right click and you paste the formatting. Let's paste the formatting. Well, as you can see, we've now got a problem because it's saying everything costs more than 50, which is clearly not true. So what's going on? Now, this is where it's helpful to use the Manage Rules section. If you use Manage Rules, you can see what's happening. So here is your rule that you've just created, and it applies to this current selection that you've highlighted. So there is another rule up above, which we're not looking at right now. So bear in mind when you select Manage Rules, it is to whatever selection you're currently looking at, unless you change it here. And here is your rule. So let's have a look at what's going on. So first of all, it's looking at B17, whether B17 is greater than 50. Well, there's a problem because B17 is only here. It's this 1000 number. And because you've frozen that particular cell, you're basically saying, I want to highlight everything in this range here, which is A15 to A25, red and italicized, if specifically B17 is over 50. But we don't want that. We don't want it just to be B17. We want it to be any other cell that is just adjacent to any one of these cells in our selected range. How do we do that? Well, you might think, let's unfreeze, and that's actually a good instinct. So let's try unfreezing. So we get rid of these little dollar signs. Now it just says if B17 is over 50. You click OK. Now let's click on apply and see what happens. Well, it looks as if we're close, but it's still not really right. Why is that? Well, it's because you've selected B17, but your range starts at A15. So the row 15 is 2 above the row 17. So what's actually happening is it's looking at your word here, takeaway, and then what it's doing, it's like saying, okay, well, I'm checking against B17 first, which is 2 below. And so what you're getting here actually relates to 2 rows below, because that's where B17 is. So instead, if you change B17 to B15, you're now getting what it's checking to align with the range that it's supposed to apply to. So it's first going to start at A15, and then it's going to look at B15 and see if B15 is above 50. And if it is, apply the conditioning to A15. So let's click on OK and then apply that. And as you can see, that has fixed the problem. So the top of your range, which it's applying to, A15, needs to correspond to wherever you're wanting to test against, which in this case is going to be B15. And you need to watch out, because if you fix a particular cell using the dollar buttons, then everything in your range is only going to test against that fixed cell. So if you don't want that and you want it to test relative to the position of each cell in the range, you need to remove the freezing from the test cell that you're testing against. I hope that that makes sense. This really does become clearer with practice, but there you go. We have now managed to get the result that we want. Anything that is above 50 in cost highlights red and italicized.